مساء الخير جميعاً. Good evening, everyone. It's our great pleasure and honor to welcome today to the Sheikh Ibrahim Center Mr. Manuel Rabaté, the current director of the Louvre Abu Dhabi. Monsieur Manuel Rabaté is a graduate of HEC Paris and Sciences Po. He has previously taught arts and cultural management at the Paris Dauphine University and later at the Paris Sorbonne Abu Dhabi. From 2005 to 2008, he was the Deputy Director of Cultural Development at the Musée du Quai Branly Jacques Chirac during its opening years. He managed the launch of the museum, its first traveling exhibitions, of which Masque, Beauté des Esprits, which was shown at the Bahrain National Museum. It was an exhibition we were very honored to have at the museum, and it was the first large traveling exhibition, actually, that was hosted by Sheikh Hamay at the National Museum. And it was, I remember, a very memorable exhibition for Bahrain, one that had a large echo, a very large audience, and that somehow really marked the beginning of an era at the National Museum. Since 2016, he's the director of the Louvre Abu Dhabi. Also during its launching years, it seems to be a specialty of yours. He oversees the museum's operations and activities. He has led the development of the Louvre's local, region, and international networks to present a roster of exhibitions. As his mandate also includes the training of a new generation of Emirati museum professionals and cultural leaders and attracting diverse audiences. I think we are really interested and excited to hear from you today on the challenges of opening this museum here in this region, a museum that we're all, really happy and honored to have so close to us here in Bahrain, and also to understand, what the fresh perspectives this has brought to the region, but also to your understanding of museums and their development in the future. Thank you very much, Manuel.
Thank you, Nora. Thank you. Beautiful. Shukran. Merci. Thank you. Thank you, Nora, for this beautiful introduction. I would even add that I started my career at the Louvre. Actually, my first job was in the Louvre. Now we need to say the Louvre Paris or the Louvre in Paris. The big one with the pyramid that we love a lot. So I will go formally to the stage. And on this special day, which is dedicated to respect and salutation of women everywhere in the world, I will start my address by thanking from the bottom of my heart a few exceptional women. Of course, Ernest Sharamey, bin Mohamed Al Khalifa, who not only invited me today, but as you perfectly mentioned, Noura, made me discover the Gulf 15 years ago through this exhibition, which was a partnership between you, the National Museum, and the Musée du Quai Branly, where I was working. So for me, it was actually the first time that I really had a professional exchange with the region, and I knew the Arab world. I had worked in when the Musée du Louvre was actually planning what would become the Museum of Islam, the Department of Islamic Arts within the Louvre. I was working from the auditorium on the programming that were accompanying that, but it was my actual first pure intervention. So there's something quite moving to be there. And two other fantastic ladies who have been Esmeralda Cabani, who was inviting us on program this, and who had toured us today through all the beautiful houses of the Sheikh Ibrahim Center, and Melissa Anders, who was also the link after 15 years ago, and she's not there today, but I want to salute her. So I will try in a reasonable amount of time to share with you what this new museum, born in 2017, what does it mean, what is trying to explain in the history of museum in the world, and especially, and maybe that would be intent in the region, and what does it mean potentially for the Arab world and for the region. So we were so we have two other great members of the team, Khadija and François, who accompanied me, and we were brainstorming on what to show, and I delved into one of the first movie that we used to sort of a teaser just when we were. So this is old, huh? This is just the first way we were trying to explain what we were, and I was trying to find it back in the archive, and actually it still works quite well, at least in the ambition.
Why are you you? You're a meeting of worlds beyond color and creed and gender. Together, we reflect all cultures, all ways. Universal ideals, visions of art and truth. We are the link between the past and the future. Through art, new possibilities are born. We are mirrors of each other. Together, we create new worlds. Together, we are more powerful than we know.
Almost everything is in this movie. The museum was finished, the building was finished, we can see it. The collection was already there, the lawns and the collection of the Louvre Abu Dhabi, and the intention of connecting people and culture was definitely there. We have them, maybe to dezoom and to explain when we are. You in Bahrain, as you say, Nora, you're close to us. We are 1 hour flight from each other, but what's happening in the Emirates in general, but especially in Abu Dhabi, the capital of the country, is actually impressive and phenomenal. We just opened 1 month ago, 3 weeks ago, the Abrahamic family home, which is just 5-7 minutes walk from the Louvre Abu Dhabi, and you can see. Unfortunately, we don't have the beautiful real picture. This is still a rendering, but this is this great complex in which you have a synagogue, a church, and a mosque connected by the same architect, David Adjaye. You can see the Louvre Abu Dhabi, which is existing, and the Sheikh Zayed Museum, which is being built and transformed. So the Louvre Abu Dhabi is actually part of a very dynamic, very ambitious strategy, betting in culture, on education, on creating some impressive new equipment. This is a project. This is actually moving very fast. From Louvre Abu Dhabi, you can see that the Zayed National Museum is moving extremely fast, and the Guggenheim Abu Dhabi is planned to be for the works, the big works, to be delivered and received in 2025. So we are talking about a few more years to get a full system in which you will have the Louvre Abu Dhabi, a universal museum rooted in the Arab world, the Zayed National Museum that will tell the story of the UAE nation and its connection, of course, to the region and to the world. The Guggenheim Abu Dhabi that will explore the modernity and contemporary art from the point of view of the South, connecting a new way of telling the globalization stories, but also a natural history museum, which is a new project that was officially announced, I think, a few months ago, but which is also going very quickly, and on a project which is with TeamLab, the Japanese digital artist, called Phenomena, which is also in the same place. So this part of the Abu Dhabi being a series of islands, an archipelago, we have one of these islands which is called the Saadiyat Island, in which all of this infrastructure are being developed. And you can see when you add all of them that there is this idea of gathering in the same place at almost walking distances. All the places, all the topic of knowledge, understanding from art to science, and to get this access to the people of Abu Dhabi and people coming through Abu Dhabi. So that's for the context. In terms of storytelling, we started, actually this is more than a decade now, because the project, I have to teach myself to stop talking about the project, because now the museum is open, but when you have for 10 years it was a project. The project is born out of an intergovernmental agreement between France and Abu Dhabi, which means it's a treaty. So the value of the legal commitment of both parties at the highest committing side. And this treaty was signed in 2007. We opened the museum in November 17. So we have roughly a decade of work during which the building progressed from the sketch up to the construction, during which the collection was, the acquisition went on, during which we had a pre-opening, prefiguration, exhibitions, focus group, we prepared the audience, and of course we prepared the staff. Then in 2017 we managed to open to the public. We had 2 years of I would say fantastic encounters with our publics and development, still development of the program of the collection. And then, like everyone in the world, we were hit by the COVID. We managed to close the museum only 100 days, literally, and we reopened quite quickly and strongly. We managed to keep on our programming and on our exhibitions and so on, but the world was completely different. You have felt it, of course, in Bahrain, everywhere. The museum, the culture world was, I would say, attacked and in difficulties, and there were so many other emergencies coming on that we were ready to play our role in the resilience of the society, but the 3 years of COVID have been quite challenging for us as well, even if we have always kept the museum open, and after the reopening and welcoming public. So we are now, I would say, in the post-COVID phase, definitely, and receiving back many visitors. And we celebrated our 5th anniversary in November 22. And since that, we are back at a normal speed. We may be missing the Chinese visitors, which were one big segment pre-COVID, but except for that, in terms of education, in terms of visitors from all over the world, we are back, and with maybe something stronger with the communities that during the period of COVID found our doors open. So the intergovernmental agreement is actually the element that defines the shaping, the mold in which Louvre Abu Dhabi by which it's shaped. So the Louvre Abu Dhabi is an Abu Dhabi museum. It's very important. It's not a branch of the Louvre. It is. I'm working for the Department of Culture and Tourism of Abu Dhabi, so the equivalent of the Ministry of Culture, which is managing all the other museums that you've seen, and all the other very ambitious political elements from heritage to so many things. So we are one of these projects, one of these equipment, and so on. But there is a special relationship to the French museums, and of course, the most important one, the Louvre. So the name Louvre is granted for 30 years and 6 months. Why 6 months? Don't ask me. I don't know exactly. I know it was during the negotiation. It was rounded at this. With the name Louvre, there is a brand license agreement, which is explaining how the name can be explained. But with the names come a demand, a level of quality, of exigence, and many access also to the world, the global museum system. This has been extended up to 47. So we have added 10 years It was in December 2021, if I'm not mistaken, and the extension is giving us a longer. We were always saying during the project phase, 30 years, it's a generation, and when you have 10 or 15 years, half of the generation gone, it was good to push it a little bit better. So now this museum is called Louvre Abu Dhabi up to 47. But we also, through this access, and because it is the essence of Louvre, which is granted to Abu Dhabi, we have actually access not only to the Louvre, but to the full French museum system, which is extremely rich, and I will show you that a little bit after. So we have loans, we have exhibitions during loans for 10 years, exhibition for 15 years, and a special body was created, the Agence France-Muséums, which is gathering expertise and which has accompanied the DCT during all this phase, which is still existing to support us. And also there was a commitment to create this collection, because after 10 years, normally Louvre Abu Dhabi has to be alone with, or at least without the existing committed French loans. I will come back to that again later. So this is you recognize, of course, a map of Paris, and I'm sure you're all familiar with some of them at least. I go back to the essence. Louvre Abu Dhabi has the access to the idea of Louvre. And actually, if you take Paris, and I would say the greater region, the universality which is embedded in the Louvre is actually going further than the Louvre as an institution on a palace today. I remember Henri Loiret, who was the tall man that you've seen behind the signature, saying, actually the room after the Louvre is a Musée d'Orsay, if you take Paris as a museum. And the room after Orsay is the Centre Pompidou. And in a way, for some part, François, forgive me on archaeology, but for some of the archaeology which is missing, we could say that the room before or the room on the side is Saint-Germain-en-Laye, which is also part of the gathering. If you want the rest of the world, we need Musée du Quai Branly, which was mentioned. If you want Asia, you need Guimet. If you want the rest of the royal collection, you need, of course, Versailles, etc., and Cluny. So we managed to have roughly between 15 and 17 French museums which are gathered through the loans, through the expertise, all the time. Sèvres, and some very dynamic, like Musée des Arts Décoratifs, on a specific element, is actually very supportive as well. But what is important is that this museum was a reinvention. So you see, for the collection, we are more than the Louvre, or let's say more than the Louvre as it is today as an institution, because we have access to more than that. The idea was to recreate a museum that would tell the story of the world in gathering artworks from all civilization and all period of time. So from the IGA, from the treaty, from the Article 1, we really had this idea of dialogue and so on. The idea of breaking the department as they are, or the separation between the departments. That doesn't mean the breaking the specialization, but the way that the museography would be invented was creating this connection. And I will show you that with artworks, because the theories are more important. But so the reinvention of that. We are more a universal museum than an encyclopedic museum, in the sense that we are not necessarily looking for the exhaustivity of what we show, but for the representation in general stories. Okay, I will go back to the artworks in a short while, just to talk about this universalism. For me is fleshed into 4 pillars. The first one is the building. The second one is the narrative, and this is maybe the most important for the identity, the core identity. The third one would be, of course, the visitors. And the fourth one, and I think this is very important as well, is the staff and the way it works. So on the first one, Jean Nouvel, recognized incredible star architect who French extremely powerful architect. Jean is a contextualized architect, which means that each time he's working, he's really rooting his work in the territory, in the identity, in the culture, and he's really taking the time to have inspiration. Let's say, journey with the Arab world is actually quite old, because one of the most important buildings is designed, the Institut du Monde Arabe, was already a first relationship between his creativity and the Arab world, and there are some elements that we can find which are in echo, the treatment of the moucharabier, on a few things which are more his grammar, and you will see. So that's the first sketch that he did. There is a legend of the napkins on which he sketched what would be the museum. Actually, already inspired. So, in terms of inspiration for the Louvre Abu Dhabi, the moucharabier and some element of the Arabian architecture were integrated by Jean. The idea of the light, either in the souk or in the oasis, but the places where the light become material, this sort of beam of light that you can really experience in these places with either sun or dust, or the way light become material. And the Medina, the Arabic city, the fort. I've heard him say both, because it's a little bit, at the same time it's a castle, it's a casar, and at the same time it's a city, and you can be lost in its little streets. So when you mix all this, you have this incredible architecture in which we have a palace or a fort or a city in which houses are actually the rooms of the museum. They are connected and they create little streets. We are on the sea on the four sides, so they're really on access by pont-levis to get to the museum. So the architecture is really specific and really in its environment between the sea and the island. Welcoming the visitor, and on the main, I would say, memorable, physical, life-changing experience is this rain of light. That's the name we made we gave to the feeling of this light becoming material. You can see, so this ray, for all of those who have not seen it yet, the building is not moving, but through this dome, which is made of 8 layers of metal, we have a changing, like a kinetic sculpture. The movement of the sun is creating evolution of pattern and movement. We also have integrated some of the collection. A few can be exhibited outside and be part of the playing on the architectural, like this fontaine. We also have made some commissions. So this work with the artist Jenny Holzer, who has engraved 3 walls with text which are actually relevant to the period of the artworks inside behind the wall. So a way of having a tattoo that's a Montaigne text. You have Emeraldum and some cuneiform. So this incredible cupola on the sea, you see how we are completely on the water, is maybe the first artwork of the collection, and definitely the place in which we can propose, let's say, a reflection and a meditative approach to history of art and history of the world. It works also by night, and you can see how we are actually connected to the city. The second important pillar that would exemplify what is this new museum object. So we have a beautiful architecture, we have a very specific physical approach that is preparing the visitors to receive a specific narrative. Then we go back to this idea of Louvre versus or Louvre meeting Abu Dhabi. The Louvre, the essence, being the biggest museum of the world, being with 8 and soon 9 departments, it is a museum of museum. It's a place which can gather, summon culture and object from very various civilizations. Abu Dhabi, being the capital of the UAE, being this transformative ambition, has a capacity to connect the world. So when we put both together, we are actually using the Universal Museum, the new one, in the heart of the Arab world, as a new way to tell a connected history of art. Which means that the story of history becomes extremely important, the narrative becomes very important, and that the connection between the artworks is also the leading element. So we have, you saw, this was the first room, so the first room is actually the putting the ambition and the way. So the first room is a room of questions in which we have objects by a group of 3, very specific showcases as well by Jean Nouvel, a connection with the building and sort of dots of light, and we are asking universal question, or we put universal principle in front of you. This one on maternity in the Middle Ages, in Egypt or in Africa. The artworks are not connected by time, by civilization, but they have something which is obviously a commonality. So this is the first place where we create this kind of question. This is also a new the new display that we have, 3 golden masks used in Peru, in the Philippines, and in the Levant. All of them have in common to be associated to ritual, to go beyond death. But the difference I mean, the difference, but at the same time, the commonalities are extremely important, and the objects are beautiful. The Philippines is one of our last ambassador object that we got also as a way to interact with the Filipino population in the UAE, which is around 700,000. And so when we put this object to show how we put the Filipino people within the story of the world, that was quite impressive in terms of audience reaction. But I'm taking this example because the universality means that you can come with your identity, that will be your entry point, but then you discover how it is connected to other civilization, to other human and artistic moment. Voilà. So now we will enter into the galleries themselves after the first grand vestibule, and we are now, I say sometimes, in a time machine. So we are starting with Neolithic on the side, and we're accelerating. So you don't see something which are offside, but the Al Razain, which is another very important loan that we got from our friends in Amman, is a way to start the representation, and this object in itself is fascinating. So we will so this story of the world is, of course, summoning artworks from all civilizations. So you don't see necessarily, but we have a Jomon Vase. So we have Asia. We have of course this region. But we bring every countries, every geographical space together in the same room, and sometimes in the same showcases, which is in a way extremely important. But while we are telling this story of the world, we always make sure that we are rooted in our territory. And you can see one of the vase found in Marawa, which is one of the islands of Abu Dhabi, has also one of the elements that is, which is a vase found in Marawa, but coming from Mesopotamia. So it's already a story of collection and traveling objects. I will go in time now. Up, maybe too quick. No. just a few images to tempt you to come and visit. We moved from the first villages to the first kingdom, and now slowly to the first empires. Beautiful Chinese dragon that we have from the Waring State before the empire, and we have these moments where we do this kind of visual, obvious familiarities between Roman statues and the Gandhara statues, and for a while we had Alexander the Great as alone from the Louvre. You could understand he is maybe the missing link between the two statues, but in one visual element you can either be a specialist or you can understand what kind of connection are at work. In Eurasia we have this room which is actually extremely important, and that in a way paves the cemented the capacity to demonstrate tolerance inside the museum, where we have all these artworks. So they are artworks, but they are all coming and illustrating all the religions of the world. So the three Abrahamic religions, but as well Buddhism, we have a dancing Shiva. We are presenting all these objects in respect, together, side by side, also because of their beauty, but not denying their religious meaning and what was shared by many people. This is actually important because this is also from Abu Dhabi, from the island Serbanias. It was a Nestorian. It's a stucco found in Nestorian 7, 8. François, you must know better than me, but 7th and 8th century Nestorian monastery in the island, proving some other roots of faith that are very important. Voilà, this room is also extremely important. We have a Torah, a Bible, a Quran, and a sacred text from a sacred sutra in the same place again. With the dimming of the light is not because of the religiosity, but because of the fragility of the artwork. But it also gives some solemnity to this moment in the parcours. Again, Buddhism in two heads, from the birth in India to the road to China, can be illustrated with only two. Then you can build, of course, a more elaborate discussion on it. But for us, in this storytelling, we wanted to insist in this connection. Always exploring also the diversity, so a Jain sculpture from India to show even within Hinduism the variety of the experience and belief. This is a big showcase exploring the Silk Route from the Tang up to Europe, of course through this region. Some of our animals, we had the dragon, this Marisha lion is also one of the beautiful artworks of the collection that is a unicum in himself. I didn't tell you all the time when it was a loan or when it was owned by the Louvre Abu Dhabi. This is definitely a loan by the Louvre. It was our 5th anniversary gift, Saint John the Baptist by the Louvre, by Leonardo from the Louvre, that we have with us for 2 years, and this is. Of course, a fantastic beauty to have this access. This is one of the artworks of the collection, Rembrandt. Beautiful artworks also of the collection, Osman Bey, incredible artist trained in Paris, but who shaped completely the museum and the heritage world in Istanbul. And this is one of his paintings that he did using this technique. Again, we move through times, and we have the acceleration, and we wanted also to show how shapes are traveling. So this is one of the demonstrations. The Gauguin, of course, inspired by the Japanese prints, and how you can visually just for the pleasure of the eyes, or because you want to learn more, you understand the communication of movement of forms. Again, we're moving towards the end. The clin on the Chiraga, the way to use the body as a painting, as a way to interact and to create beyond figuration or recreating figuration. Beautiful artworks of our collection by Mahamalou from KSA, who is a great artist, and this is one of the very strong installations that we have on our walls. Voilà, so in a nutshell, story of the world, a time machine, connected history in a relatively limited number of artworks. I'm saying relatively because the artworks, you saw some of the images, the artworks have really the space to breathe. We see them in their magnificence. They need to be extremely strong. They need to be to be able to dialogue with each other. But they are. We're talking about 700 artworks in total. So it's a very difficult choice for the curatorial team to choose which one from our collection or from the loans will be chosen to be able to tell. And it's changing all the time, depending on the loans, depending on relationship with the French Museum, depending on relationship with the other lenders. So this story of the world is always the same and always changing at the same time. So this is the main backbone of the museum, the permanent galleries. We also have we go back. Here's the current collection is actually based on four elements. The Louvre Abu Dhabi collection, which started in 2008. So we have acquired more than 1,000 artworks since the beginning. We on huge series of print, photograph, coins. The loan from the French partners, so 10 years, rotating, some not moving at all because they're very heavy on like Ramses II statues that is there since the beginning, and we'll see the statue will come back to Paris at one point, but for now it is there, and you've seen the Leonardo is there for 2 years. We have loans from a partner around the world. So we manage, and I think I will show some example. From the beginning, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia was extremely supportive. So we had loans from them, and we hosted the Roads of Arabia, and we kept the rock art, which came especially for that. And this is actually the installation in the last row. At the end of the time machine, we confronted Cy Twombly and rock art a few thousand years ago in their beauty and abstract strengths. Jordan, we mentioned. We worked also with Oman since the beginning, and the Saudi. This is in the parcours and the Road of Fate. We also wanted to root this story. In the UAE themselves. So, for those who have been you know that the UAE are composed of 7 emirates. So, of course, Abu Dhabi is the biggest by size, and this is where the capital is. But for the 50th birthday, which was in 21, we absolutely wanted to, for the Universal Museum, to illustrate the national ambition on the union, and so we managed to gather all the museums, all the partners together. Some I will not say at which speed, but they were all with us, and that was in itself an achievement, and I would say a pride shared by all of them. We also have temporary exhibitions, so. A good portion of them are through the agreement with the French museums, and there are between 2 and 4 exhibitions a year that are coming from the collections, and we have our own exhibition in which we invite artists based in the GCC to propose artworks, and that was a way for the Louvre Abu Dhabi again to come back the museum as a place of inspiration, a place welcoming artists. So we do what we call Louvre Abu Dhabi Art here with the support of Richard Mill to invite artists, and we select them. There is a international jury on the prize, and we also have a children museum in which we play with children and to educate their gaze. I will give you some example of specific exhibition. The Fouroussia one with Musée de Cluny was a fantastic encounters between the Fursan, the Arabic Fursan, and the night. Instead of opposing them, we explored what they had in common, from the poetry to the beautiful, onto the master of the horse. And actually, this is the exhibition which was closed because of COVID. We kept it open and we reopened with that, and that's still one of our most beautiful moments. Another big civilizational encounter, Dragon and Phoenix. The interaction between the Islamic worlds and the Chinese worlds, and how they share more than the Silk Road. Again, we thought that the Chinese would be back, but that was nevertheless a beautiful exhibition just during Dubai Expo. And we just closed, sadly, an exhibition which is more on a movement, on acceleration of the history of art with Musée d'Orsay on the birth of the movement Impressionism. That was we could have our new joiner in the collection, the Vis Renoir, was exhibited through the exhibition. La Pie, okay, beautiful loans from Orsay and fantastic access to masterpieces that you couldn't get a few thousand kilometers around. And today we have another exhibition with Musée du Quai Branly, which is called Bollywood, a short story of Indian cinema, which is again amplifying our love for storytelling, and which is exploring the old storytelling of India, from the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, up to the pop culture, the global culture, which is Bollywood. So a mix of objects and cinema, which is actually extremely interesting as an exhibition object, which is talking to the population we have in the UAE, but which is also telling something on what a universal museum can tell about the universal languages. Beautiful cover. If you have, it finishes in June. Some example of the children museums, where we play with again universal language, how to communicate with children. So we are playing on the gamification. We are finding a way to work with the children, to have fun with the children, but they can win the game only if they look at the artwork. So you have a series of games they create on Avatar, and they win points, but only if they interact with the artworks, which are actually important artworks on loans or from our collection. This one I will pass just for the time. Just to I was talking about universal languages. So if the first pillar was definitely this place in which we can reinvent a new museum experience, the building, this collection that you've seen, the collections always evolving, but gathering the civilizations together. In terms of public, which is the third pillar, we really are also in this universal element. Let me just check that. And just to show, this is a graph, sorry, it can be horrible after all the artworks, but just to see how our audience moved from a mix which was 70-30 touristic versus resident. We completely inverse by definition when we were only working with people on the ground, and now we're going back again to attractivity of the tourists. They visit Abu Dhabi, and Louvre Abu Dhabi is part of the offering of the capital city, but also the audiences coming from more than 200 countries are finding are staying and are coming back to us. We saw that in terms of evolution during the COVID the Emirati were, of course, the main audience of the museum. They are still the most repetitors and the most lovers of the museum, but the evolution is changing a lot. India is one of our big source of visitor. Indian living in the UAE or Indian visiting the UAE or both at the same time. Voilà. And this is where we are today with a peak of Russia, still India very strong, Philippines I told. So you can see the impact of also the artworks on the programming that we do on the evolution of our public and we are surfing on so many nationalities, so universal language is unfortunately impossible, so we need to be universal, we need to speak several languages, so we had to make some art choice for the signage and so on. So the museum is fully in Arabic, English and French as a written signs, but with the audio guide and with the digital tools, we had the possibility to go a little bit further. So we integrated Hindi and so the Chinese, Russian, German is a photography of the representation of the visitation at the moment we develop the languages. Today we would add more, and this is a constant effort that we want to reach out to our visitors. And with COVID, the distribution of a physical audio guide has completely disappeared. So the question is, how do we offer something that will be in the personal device of the visitors? How do we make it like your personal digital usher inside the museum? And how can we welcome you in your language as much as possible? These are part of the things. We also, if there is one universal language, it is the language of music. And we worked with Anrami, musical digital platform, and they curated playlists, which are more or less the duration of the visit. So you can choose if you are in a classical mood or and so on, and you can just use instead of having the explanation, you can visit the museum with something that will have been curated for the visit of the museum. We played with that was during COVID the storytelling on how to use our building, which in a way looks like a spaceship. Can we tell a story? Can we have let's not fun because the story not completely fun, but can we have another angle on our institution? Can we dare question what our institution is about? And same thing, this is a beautiful exercise that we did also, which was to tell the story as a story, which is another way to visit the museum. You can, it's a very epic, it's a 42-minute, so you can watch it in your place or on a screen, or you can just put it as a narration, and this is really the exploration through time with the main artworks of the galleries. And voilà, the books are also part of it. Talking about telling stories, we had this very important program of reaching out to the people who don't go necessarily to museums or to cultural sites, and to find a way. And inviting elder Emirati to tell stories inside the gallery was a way to give them the possibility to own the narrative, especially. And this is very, very, very successful. And we have that in front of the artwork from the UAE. Voilà. We also have other ways of looking at the museum differently. Yoga, the building is on the sea, so we can do exploration with a kayak. Which is a way, which at first it sounded like a joke by the team, but this is a sculpture on the sea. So the best way to see it is actually from the sea, and this is meditative, not super sportive, extremely meditative approach to look at a different angle at this beautiful museum. We are voilà, and we're moving to this is. Or Rodin and Aisha, and that will be the fourth pillar, and maybe back again to the universal. The team is composed for 60% of Emirati, and the rest is universalism of cosmopolitanism of Abu Dhabi. So the sentence you use is exactly the right. This is a place that is training a new generation of Emirati to be leader on museum professionals. Sometimes we are creating a full cycle, like for curators, and on some specialties that didn't exist locally. Sometimes we are just transposing some skills. Our security director is actually was trained as a security police officer, and it's just transpose his work within the context of an international standard museum in Abu Dhabi. So the transformation, the universal transformation of this museum level is also what we do. And for me, this is the most important lessons of what Louvre Abu Dhabi can offer to the region and to the world is this access to all this demand, complexity, intercultural layers, and to be able to process them and to learn from them and to develop skills and professional capacities on the ground. And, when you hear Aisha presenting with the same facility the Impressionism or the Rodin, as well as talking about the evolution of Osman Bey, this is where we are actually changing the system, our system. Voilà.
Hi, my name is Asha Al-Ahmadi and I'm a curatorial assistant. We're standing here today in front of the monument of Victor Hugo, which the museum acquired in 2020. It's depicting the prominent French author, who was well known during his lifetime for his commitment to social issues. After Victor Hugo's death in 1885, it was decided that a monument was going to be built in his honor. And the winner of the commission was none other than Auguste Rodin, the sculptor who was so skilled he was once accused of casting his work from the model's body directly. The author and the artist were introduced by a journalist, which allowed Rodin to do the very first portrait of Victor Hugo in 1883. Here we see Victor Hugo unidealized. Rodin depicts him in exile, seated amongst the rocks, with his arms outstretched as if in an attempt to calm the waves. The figures around the author changed as Rodin continued to work on the sculpture. Today we see two women who are a result of Victor Hugo's literary productions. Victor Hugo remains one of the world's most prominent authors, and Rodin remains a sculptor who was so skilled, his work was believed to be a cast made directly from the model.
So, voilà, Victor Hugo as the universal authors, but I chose a French, Aisha talking about a French artist, but we have all the examples in all the collection in all the countries. So this is so these four pillars. If I just recap, a new to give some time for the question, a universal museum, a new model from the shell, the building, to the collection, to the visitors, and maybe the lasting effect will be on the team, on the staff. Voilà. Thank you so much. Please don't hesitate. How do you want, Nora? Sorry, I think I went a little over.
No, not at all. Thank you so much for this beautiful journey, Manuel, in the museum. It was really beautiful and inspiring to see. I don't know if there are any questions. I maybe have one to start with. You know, now you ended your talk by saying that this was a new model for a museum, and I wanted to know how and if this experience of the Louvre being in Abu Dhabi is feeding back into the Louvre in Paris, if in any way.
Alors, I'm sure we are a learning place, a testing ground. The experimentation of the Children's Museum came back to other kind of experimentation in the Louvre, the Petite Galerie experimentation. Now it changed again, but the way to use gamification and and was experimented with us, for us, and is coming back. The changes on the this global perspective on consists. In a way, the Louvre Lens was the first step in this direction. And I don't know if you know, but now the Musée du Quai Branly was invited, so the non-Western art are also part of, in echo of Louvre Lens, and this is the kind of experimentation that we didn't create that, but we have been a place of experimentation. In terms of public, I think there are some knowledge on some segments which the Louvre doesn't know. I talk a lot about the Indian communities, but they are traveling more and more on the. We have an understanding on the museum behavior, which are actually quite useful for our colleagues in Paris. So I think a real partnership as a mutual influence. It's not something which is canton passé, and in the same way that it was not a mini Louvre in Abu Dhabi, but the reinvention of something for Abu Dhabi. I think in this relationship, even the international ways of seeing things changed within the French museums.
Thank you so much for that very impressive presentation that you gave us. I had a question about the impact that you feel that the Louvre has on the city. How is that being measured? And how do you see yourself in terms of the cultural landscape that's happening in the region, Saudi, Qatar, etc.? So, I mean, the landscape is obviously changing. So how is that impacting the Louvre?
It's a little... chicken and egg, in the sense that we are participating and accelerating something which is extremely dynamic. I cannot summarize everything which is happening in the region, but we see it blossoming. The neighbors are extremely active as well. What I can really speak about is the UAE ecosystem, which is from Abu Dhabi to Sharjah and to Dubai, extremely active. So we are a very specific offering in this evolution on the Sharjah as this experimental, the biennale, many museums and a very rich, dense network. Each one specialist, which is the opposite of what we do when we bring them together, but we know each other very well and we respect and we work together. Dubai has this Dubai Art Fair, Abu Dhabi has an art fair as well, and this is and so on. You have some private initiative like Art Jamil, Al Cercals, which are extremely stimulating places of experimentation. Abu Dhabi has this capacity to create this huge equipment dedicated to culture, art, science, and to bring them together. So all of this is elevating the scene, for sure. So for us, being one of the first of these big flagship, give us a responsibility of experimentation. When I was talking about the staff, for instance, I know that we are accelerating, and our staff or people will come through us to go to all these institutions, and this is normal. Not all at the same time, if we can, but it's normal that the place is contributing. So this is for the offering, and I'm not even talking about the colleague in Ras Al Khaimah and so on, but the scene in the UAE is really extremely moving, and with the COVID, people went even more in terms of connection. What is important for when you zoom on Abu Dhabi is also the as you said, the economic transformation that this kind of investment has, touristically, definitely, as an attraction for the city, and that's it's it's Keynesian spending in a way. You are just there is a leverage effect on your economy by this unique offering, but you also are creating the contractors, the subcontractors, the companies, the small businesses that are so necessary to our jobs, and I think we are, it's like in a poem, the tree in the oasis, the palm trees are actually generating an ecosystem which is far more diverse than just the palm tree. And I think this is the same thing for big investment like we are. The generation of direct and indirect values is really tangible.
Thank you so much
Thanks.
for that.
Okay. Thank you very much, Manuel, once again, and
Come and visit.
and come
1
and
hour.
visit
Come and
Louvre
visit
Abu
us.
Dhabi.
Why not? Thanks.